What's going on, Goosers? Welcome back. You may notice that the audio already is significantly improved from our Genghis Khan series, and that's because Mr. Goose himself splurged on a new microphone to give you guys the best quality possible. I spent $35 on Amazon, just got in yesterday. Perfect timing to record this new episode. So just to show you guys the things that I'm willing to do for my 6 subscribers, this is it. And just to jump right into things here with our new and improved content, I'm going to start a series called Bad Kings, where I describe some of history's worst leaders. I'm going to try and keep it from the pre-modern era, so I'm not going to get into the modern day politics. I'm not interested in doing that. Just sort of how history looks back on some of these crazy leaders and some of these crazy stories. So today's episode is going to be on Ibrahim the First of the Ottoman Empire, also known as Ibrahim the Mad. I'll get into why in a second. Funny story. Seemed like an absolute kook. Funny guy. Had a lot of weird things going on with him. And let me just walk you through that. All right. So before we really jump into the life of Ibrahim the Mad, I've got to give you some general background info on how the Ottoman Empire was run back then. And typically, the sultans had a large number of concubines. And a concubine is basically a mistress, someone who's not the sultan's wife. And they had a lot of them, and they weren't secrets out in the open. And so these concubines would stay in what was called the harem, which was attached to the palace, the Ottoman palace. And this is where all the concubines would stay. And depending on the sultan, the harem would be a nice place to stay or a not so nice place to stay. And it also depended on how much the sultan liked each individual concubine. So if you were a favorite concubine, you probably got treated a little bit better. You probably got some gifts. You probably got better living arrangements. And so this was the case for Ibrahim's father. Sultan Ahmed I had a large number of concubines. And so Ibrahim's brothers, there were 7 of them, were not full brothers. They were half brothers. Most of the time, they did not share the same mother. And to make things even more hectic, regardless of who your mother was, as long as you were son of the sultan, and regardless of how old you were, didn't matter if you were the oldest or the youngest brother, all these brothers had an equal claim to the throne. And considering that none of them came from the same mother, they didn't care about each other. So they didn't care if they lived or died. So when it came to who was going to be the next sultan, things got a little deadly. Things got a little nasty. Sometimes the boys didn't play so nice. And so to become sultan was a little bit of a dangerous game. And so a lot of times the brothers would kill each other. And by a lot of times, most of the time. But Sultan Ahmed said, you know what, I'm going to put a stop to that. I don't like how everyone's brothers have to kill each other to get the throne. I'm going to be the good guy here. I'm going to start a new tradition. And so his idea was to just lock his brothers up in a jail cell forever. And these jail cells were called kafes. They were in the palace, but by no means were they a luxury suite. They were prisons, and you never got to see the light of day once you were locked up in there. There were windows, but you could not leave. Couldn't communicate with anyone. It's jail. So good guy Ahmed is thinking ahead. He's like, I don't want my sons to kill each other to be sultan. That would suck. They're my boys. I love them. And so in 1617, he had his 8th and final son, Ibrahim, and that's where our story really starts here. And so, unfortunately, about 2 years after that, after Ibrahim was born, his father died, Ahmed died, and one of Ibrahim's brothers, Murad IV, takes over. Now, Murad's like, Dad had a great idea. I'm not going to kill my brothers. I'm going to lock them up in kafes as well. And so that's what he did. So at age 2, Ibrahim goes into prison, never to see the light of day again, never to talk to anyone else. He's a baby, but they locked him up. What is a baby going to do? I don't know. They said just start him young. So at 2 years old, Ibrahim gets locked up. And so Ibrahim stays in there for 20 years. And throughout those 20 years, Murad kind of went back on his word a little bit and was taking the brothers out of their kafeses and killing them, strangling them. I guess he still didn't want any chance of them getting out and taking the throne. So over the 20 years, Ibrahim is seeing all his brothers being removed from these cages and then never coming back. So he's assuming they're probably dead. And so you can imagine the mental toll that 20 years in a jail cell from the time you're a baby, while also seeing all your brothers one by one taken out and killed. You can imagine what kind of mental toll that takes and what kind of effect that has on you during your developmental years. And so you can kind of start seeing where we're getting the name Ibrahim the Mad from. So fast forward 20 years, the year is 1640 now. Murad is on his deathbed. He caught an illness and he knew he was dying, and one of his final wishes was, hey, before I die, please kill Ibrahim. He's totally insane. I've kind of screwed up by putting him in that cage, and he went bonkers. But Ibrahim's mom, her name was Kosum Sultan, she was like, no, we can't kill him. He's been in there for 20 years. Why would we kill him now? We got to save his life so he can become Sultan himself. Give him a chance. Give him a chance. So Kosum Sultan, Ibrahim's mother, saves his life. She prevents Murad from killing him, and so now Ibrahim is next in line to take the throne. But bad news. Like I mentioned a few seconds ago, Ibrahim had been in a cage for 20 years, and he has completely lost his marbles. So when everyone comes in, they're like, Ibrahim, you're going to be Sultan now. You're going to be the king. Isn't that great? He did not think that was great. He was terrified. He thought they were lying. He thought that it was a little trick to come get him out of the cage and kill him. So he was freaking out. He was like, I am not leaving this cage. There's nothing you can do to get me out of this cage. I will not be Sultan. And so Kosum Sultan, trying to save her own son's life, was like, listen, you got to believe me. Here, I'll show you. And she had Murad's body brought outside Ibrahim's window. So he peeked out his little prison cell window and saw the dead body of his brother. And he was like, okay, that is pretty convincing. Maybe I will take the job. And so, along with other convincing from Kosum Sultan, Ibrahim was still a little hesitant. He finally agrees to take the job as head of the Ottoman Empire. So I'm sure you've at least heard of the Ottoman Empire, at the very least, in like a high school textbook. But this was no slouch of an empire. Ibrahim was inheriting one of the most influential and powerful empires in the world at the time. And the Ottoman Empire lasted about 600 years, from 1300 to the early 1900s. No joke. He was not taking over some rinky-dink empire that lasted for 50 years. No, he was in charge of a superpower in the world at the time. So when you hear all that he does, keep that in mind, because he really tried to bring it to the ground. But to Ibrahim's credit, he got off to a hot start. He didn't do a lot of leading on his own right away. He sort of delegated to the people that his brother had left in power, sort of Murad's support team. He trusted them. He was like, you guys keep you're doing a great job. I'm just kind of going to check things out here, see how everything's working. Keep doing what you're doing. But then a short while after, and I can only imagine he was getting a little antsy, he was like, you know what, this stuff seems pretty easy. Let me start making some big decisions here. So, Ibrahim decides to start a war with Venice. And now, so the Ottoman Empire had already had troops in the Middle East and Iran and in parts of Russia. So Ibrahim was like, nope, it's going to be Venice. That's where I want to go. So he kind of pulled all his troops out of Iran and Russia, ended up losing them a ton of territory in those countries, which is kind of funny. He just immediately shrinks the empire as soon as he starts. Um, and so this really isn't even the worst of it. This is just sort of, he's actually attempting to be a sultan, to be a leader. These are his political moves he's making that were bad. Happens all the time. Politicians make bad moves all the time. He screwed this one up though. Lost a little bit of territory right away. And so Ibrahim's mother and the Grand Vizier, who is the highest ranking official in the Ottoman Empire, they see what he's doing and they're like, all right, maybe we don't let this psychopath start calling shots. So Ibrahim's mother, she's like, hey, Ibrahim, I know how much you love the concubines, right? And Ibrahim did. He loved his concubines. And she was like, why don't you focus on your harem and all the ladies in there? We'll take care of the boring political stuff. And so Ibrahim was jacked on that because he loved the ladies. And he was like, that's sweet. I'm honestly pretty sick of all of this political government stuff. I just want the benefits that don't involve making any decisions. So it worked. It was a win-win. And Ibrahim just sort of dedicated his time to mingling with a lot of ladies. Now, this is where we start to see those 20 years in the cage really catching up to him. We're starting to see Ibrahim turn into a bit of a creep here. And this is when people started calling Ibrahim the Mad. Some stories came out during this time that weren't so flattering about him. One of them was that he would line up all his concubines in the harem and he would gallop around like a horse and they would all be acting like mares and he was the stallion and he would mount them and do things like that. So a little bit of a freak. That's not his only freaky moment. People are hearing about this. They're not super pumped that their sultan is basically just a sex fiend who's not doing anything other than chilling out in his harem. And so Ibrahim's mother, in her attempt to keep him docile and keep him happy, she had to keep meeting his demands. So Ibrahim was essentially trying to bankrupt the entire Ottoman Empire on his own. He loved furs. He demanded that everything be covered in fur in the palace. Super expensive furs. He wanted to buy all his concubines expensive jewelry and, of course, furs. He decked out his harem. It was probably the best place to be in the world. And so all his concubines were living in this decked out palace area, harem. They were getting furs, jewelry, but it was not good financially for the Ottoman Empire. And people are continuing to get a little fed up with this. But Kosum Sultan had started to take on a little bit of a leadership role herself. She was sort of behind the scenes, taking over some of the decision making along with the Grand Vizier. And I think she started to like it. So she was like, we got to figure out a way to keep Ibrahim in power, keep him happy. And another thing that Ibrahim liked, and this is honestly probably the main reason why I decided to do this story, is that allegedly Ibrahim liked the larger women. As big as possible was what I could gather. So she had some guys go out and she told them, find the largest woman you can find in the entire Ottoman Empire and bring her back for Ibrahim. And so they set off and they found I don't know how they would know this at the time, but apparently a 350-pound lady for Ibrahim. Ibrahim is just jacked up about that. He's loving life. He's like, things cannot get any better. I'm getting everything I want. I'm spending all the money I want. My mom is taking care of all these ladies for me. My harem there's 280 women in my harem. Like, things are great. But Ibrahim got a little greedy, as they tend to do. And he went after the chief, I would say close to a lawyer at the time. He was like the head lawyer. Ibrahim went off after his daughter. And so his daughter was not interested, but that made Ibrahim only want her more. He did some real creepy stuff. He did some sexually assaulting, and that was kind of the tip of the iceberg. people were like, this guy, you know what, had enough of this guy. He's spending all our money. He's chasing the daughter of a very prominent person in the Ottoman Empire. He's doing nothing good for us. We got to get rid of him. And so officials in the Ottoman Empire got a little crowd together to go scoop Ibrahim up to kill him. If you can imagine what the kind of person Ibrahim was, he did not take it well. He begged for mercy. He ran back crying to his mother, who at this point his mom had turned on him. Ibrahim was not being nice to her either at this point, so she turned on him. He went back crying to her, but it didn't do any good. So after an 8-year reign of just total incompetence, Ibrahim was strangled, and this was always going to be the end for him. He was unwilling to do anything good for the empire. He was wildly selfish, horrible person, sexual deviant, and allegedly he killed 280 women in his harem. This is unverifiable. I think it's possible that after his death he was slandered to make him look even worse, to sort of justify their decision. It happens in history. They'll make unpopular leaders sound even crazier, just to justify their decisions and getting rid of them. But either way, Ibrahim was a horrible leader, horrible person, no morals whatsoever. I understand he never had much of a chance growing up in a cage, never seeing the outside world, until 20 years later, someone knocks on your door and they're like, hey, you're now the leader of this massive superpower, this massive empire. I understand that. It's still not an excuse for all the things that he did. Horrible guy, terrible leader, and he got what he deserved. Luckily, the Ottoman Empire survived, like I said, until the early 1900s. He was not the one to put an end to it. So that's the silver lining. Sort of learn from our mistakes there. But thank you for listening. This guy, like I said, is a total kook. He loved the ladies, which honestly, and I'm gotta be very careful in saying this, he was more relatable than Genghis Khan was, in the sense that, like, he outside of him being totally nutso, was like more of a normal guy. He was just like, I just like girls and I don't really care about politics. So, like, I can relate to that a little bit more. Like, I have no desire to become king of the world. Like, Genghis Khan was such a great leader and such a smart guy and just so ahead of his time. You can go listen to that if you haven't already. So, in a way, I relate to Ibrahim the Mad a little bit more, just with the fact that he was like a normal guy, and not just this mega smart leader of men. Normal guy in the sense that he had no aspirations to do anything great. I don't relate to the fact that he was crazy in so many other ways and that he was a murderer and an assaulter. I probably shouldn't keep that part in. I'm going to, I think, because it probably is going to be a little funny, a little joke. But thank you guys for listening. This was the first episode in the Bad King series. Ibrahim the Mad might be the worst leader of all time. I think he could go down as that, just in terms of the empire he was in charge of and just the horrible moves he made on not only just the political end but his personal end. Horrible. In my research, I think he was the worst. Feel free to let me know if there's anyone worse. Again, I'm going to do another one of these. I may sprinkle these in between other longer form episodes series. We'll see how it goes. But thanks for listening, Goosers. I hope you got goosed. And then don't forget to absolutely smash that subscribe button. Thanks. Also would like to give a quick shout out to Kevin for editing the video portion of this and the audio portion of this. So he edited all of it, actually. I think he did a fantastic job. It's way better than I would have done. It's also a little ironic that he did this one because in college we used to call him the Concubine King because he had so many ladies that were willing to do stuff. So Shout out Kevin, Concubine King. All right.